Are we live? I think we're live. Someone in the chat, if you can hear me, let me know. I'm always nervous when I start these by myself that I have everything going correct. So I hope that this is working. You may occasionally see the readers so that I can keep track of the chat here. Anyway, this is a 5,000 subscriber celebration. I'm really excited to reach that milestone. If you know the history of my channel, it took a long time to get going. It took me, I think, 10 months to get 100 subscribers. And I mean, it's amazing to me based on where this channel started to where it is now. But I'm really excited to share this live stream with some good friends in about 30 minutes. But we're just going to get started. So today it's just kind of these 30 minutes. It's celebratory. It's Q&A. Ask me anything. If you have any questions about the channel or me or anything, just throw them in the chat there. But hey, Heidi, I appreciate you stopping by here. And Philip, I value our interactions all the time. And thanks for stopping by there too. We got here Andrea. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's kind of surprising to me to be able to hit 5K. Honestly, never thought that I'd ever get that far. Hey, Andrew, looking forward to chatting with you pretty soon on your channel. Yay, you can hear me. Good. So I'm not just talking to the ether. Thanks, Joanna. Who else? Andrew. Yeah, thank you, sir. Hi, Anita. Appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by here. Yeah, Philip, and you were right when we talked on, well, I guess this hasn't been on your channel yet, but when we talked about the Adan trilogy, you had predicted that my channel would really grow this year. So you definitely were correct. And hopefully quality continues to improve. That's kind of the goal with this. I think that all of us, we try to evolve and make things better. So thanks, Brian. Appreciate it, man. Your channel's totally blowing up. No surprise. It's amazing to me how many channels like BellTube start off and like have production values down and look great. And I look at my first two videos I recorded on my laptop. So the video's awful. The audio's even worse. And I mean, it's so, so bad. Where did I grow up? I did not grow up in Texas. I've been in Texas. Oh, but I'm supposed to answer Texans by saying that I got here as quickly as I could. That's the token answer for people that did not grow up in Texas. No, I grew up in Ohio, but I've almost lived in Texas as long as I lived in Ohio. I grew up in Ohio and did my undergrad there. So I spent about 23 years there, and I'm currently in year 22 living in Texas. So I guess I have to turn in my Buckeye card for a Longhorn card at some point here. But yeah, no, it's a great place for what I do. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to be on Andrew's channel pretty soon and look forward. Always enjoy talking with him. Greetings from Germany. Awesome. Thanks for hanging out. I guess it's probably 7 p.m. there-ish, something like that. Yeah, I'll be in Germany this summer. I'm going on a chaperoning a music group to, I think it's 5 countries in 17 days. And we actually leave. The trip starts in London and ends in Frankfurt. So I'll be in Germany just a little bit. So, oh, it's 8 p.m. there. Okay. Awesome. Well, one thing I can announce is that the Red Fury Book Awards are not ready to launch tomorrow. So those will happen probably next week. That video takes just a lot more time and effort to do because I do the green screen. We'll have to put on a tuxedo too. I have to do the green screen and I have to obviously edit that. There's a lot of video elements. It is one of the few videos of the year that I script everything. There's a lot of kind of post-production and it's not going to be ready for tomorrow, but I will have a video out tomorrow. My video tomorrow is kind of like the typical 2023 wrap up. A lot of people are doing top 10 videos. I didn't do one of those. I just did, it's going to be called My Favorites or something like that. New favorites, I think, that I read in 2023. And there's actually 16 of them. So you can look forward to that tomorrow. It's just kind of a wrap up for sure. But yeah, this will be my second trip to Germany, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. And I want to go back more. I've never heard the Berlin Philharmonic live, so I need to do that. But yeah, I ran the Berlin Marathon in 2008, so I haven't been there since then. Thank you, Jaron. Yes, and Dr. Philip Chase is actually up for a couple awards, so you can see if he how he does. He's nominated in some of the categories, so that will be that will certainly be a fun event when I finally get it all together. Let's see. Am I stopping in Amsterdam? European swing? No, I'm not this trip. We're doing, let's see, London and then France, and then we're in London and Paris, and then small towns in Austria, Switzerland, and Germany. Although we are spending a day in Salzburg, which is good because I've been to Vienna, but I haven't been to Salzburg. So that will be fun. Vienna is one of my favorite cities just because of all of my music background. I mean, you can see that's a bust of Beethoven up there. So, in fact, when I went to Vienna, the first place I stopped, my buddy with me was kind of skeptical, but I went straight to the cemetery to pay tribute to Beethoven. Was the first thing I did when I went to Vienna. But actually, there's a whole area of the cemetery where all the composers are buried, Beethoven and Schubert and Bruckner and a bunch of them. So it's kind of a great place for musicians like myself. But sometime I'll get to Amsterdam. I do want to visit that city at some point. Red Fury Books, most anticipated award show of the year. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's been a fun one. This is the third one I've done, so definitely looking forward to that. So stakes got higher. Yeah, I definitely enjoy doing the awards show kind of wrap up, because it's a way to just celebrate a lot of things rather than saying my favorite book series or whatever. Having finalists and everything is certainly a lot of fun. So favorite piece by Beethoven aside from the Ninth Symphony. Okay, of course. Yeah, the Ninth Symphony is definitely number one. I would say probably his string quartet, Opus 131, C-sharp minor. It's one of the Beethoven string quartets in many ways are the pinnacle of Western art, in my opinion. And that last string quartet is just, that's not the very last one he wrote, but the one in C-sharp minor is ridiculously amazing. I love it. Love it. Yes, I get to wear a tux. I saw Jonathan at Words in Time. He did his wrap up and he wore a tux. So we're like the two tux buddies on our corner of BookTube that regularly put on the tuxedo. Yeah, those late string quartets are just incredible. And that's where I started. I love them all. I love the early ones too. But in fact, I've even done some of the string quartets with my orchestra. You can play them as a string orchestra with an added bass part, and it's pretty remarkable. But yeah, those are amazing. Thank you, Rogue. I definitely appreciate you. So this is a Q&A AMA, so feel free to ask any questions in the chat there, and I'm happy to answer them. My special secret guests, which will be joining me for a special announcement, will be here at about 1:30. So you get about 30 minutes with me, and then there'll be 30 minutes with the three of us kind of chatting and interacting with all of you and talking about kind of some channel plans and things like that. It's going to be a fun hour here. Love Beethoven. For me, there's nothing like Bach, especially his solo cello suites. Yeah, I can't argue with that. Can't ever argue with anybody saying that Bach is their thing. I mean, he's probably the first musical genius, at least that we're aware of. So, oh, I haven't caught Ben's. He's in my watch later queue, but I'll definitely have to catch Ben's awards. I have a bunch of them in there. I haven't watched Jimmy's yet, the Nutties. I definitely want to watch that, but I have a bunch of them. Like most of you, when you consume a lot of BookTube, it's like you watch a few. Usually for me, I watch the shorter ones during the week, and then I throw the watch later ones and try to get those during the weekend. And hopefully I'll get to all of those soon. But I always get to them eventually. So thanks, Pascal. Appreciate you hanging out and appreciate the congrats. Oh yeah, Philip has a cellist. His daughter's a cellist. Actually, I think both of your daughters were cellists. Pretty cool. One of my cellists was interviewed today. I don't know if any of you are, if you're classical music fans, on National Public Radio, there's a show called From the Top, and it showcases young classical musicians. And it was pretty cool. This morning, I was down in a recording studio at our classical music station as they interviewed two of my students. It was pretty cool that they were in Austin and they're doing a show. It'll air at the end of March, but it was pretty cool that they wanted to feature actually my entire orchestra. So we'll be on that platform online and NPR stations at the end of March. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, seeing my students get interviewed was pretty cool. This pretty cool start of the day today. Greetings from Macedonia. Awesome. Thanks, Udavor. Appreciate it. Both play cello. The older one's the serious cellist. It's interesting how that works sometimes. Sometimes the younger one will get more serious because they kind of have the older one to tutor them, but all of them are different. If I read Tchaikovsky, the author, yes. Oh, and it drives me crazy. Love you, Daniel Green, but please learn how to say Tchaikovsky. I have read City of Last Chances, which I loved. That's the only thing I've read by him. But Ben, actually, Books of Genghis Khan has been selling Shadows of the Apt for quite some time. Everybody talks about the Children of Time trilogy, so I definitely want to read that at some point. It's just like anything, the TBR is out of control right now. Mentioned Words and Times, Deathstalker. Oh, that's right, Heidi, you read Deathstalker. Yeah, in the video I did with the underappreciated, underhyped SFF, that was Jonathan's recommendation. So glad you enjoyed it. I definitely want to read it. I'd been aware of that book before that video just through Jonathan, because he's kind of one of my go-tos for science fiction recommendations. And yeah, I had remembered he had reviewed it at some point, and it was already on the TBR. But yeah, I'm glad people are discovering it for sure. But yeah, thank you, John. Appreciate it. Sorry you're at work. But yeah, appreciate it. John and I are part of a fun buddy read. If you want to stop back for another live stream, February 1st, we'll be talking about The Forgetting Moon by Brian Lee Durfee, the first book of the 5 Warrior Angels. And we have, there's a panel of 5 of us that'll be reading those books January, February, and March. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I did a review of that book and people actually watched it. I was shocked. Booktubers in the chat, we all know that individual book reviews don't always get the most views, but maybe because it was Durfee, a lot of people watched that one, which was great. So, oh, that's a good way to chai. And that's what I told him. I said, I commented, but his channel's so big, I don't think he probably looks at comments anymore. But I said, chai like the tea, and then Kovsky. But yeah, let's see. Yeah, I can only click on every video, every comment, unless I do this to figure out what's going on. All right, John, you're at the end of the buddy read. Awesome. Yeah, Durfee did watch it and thanked me for the review. So that's pretty cool, for sure. So I've certainly watched his channel quite a bit, but yeah, I do hope more people read that series. I mean, I've only read the first one, but the first book I think was very strong. And I subtitled the video, What is Epic Fantasy? Because it is epic fantasy. And really enjoyed it. It was a great mixture of a lot of the elements of classic fantasy. And yeah, it's definitely good. Definitely worth your time. Yeah. I think we are all have FOMO with just different series. Like right now, everybody's doing Sun Eater, and I don't have time yet. Like later this year is the plan to start Sun Eater, but I don't have time for it right now. And see, everybody's reading it now. I mean, not just Mike shouting about it, because Petrick and Daniel Green are shouting about it. Like, everybody's reading it, but I'll definitely be getting to that. But yeah, BookTube's all about FOMO. I mean, that's why I think I buy too many books, and my TBR spreadsheet is like 500 books perpetually. Even though I read 100 books a year, it's always at 500, I swear. Thank you, Pascal. That was, I appreciate that. The individual book reviews are harder to, that's the thing. They get the least amount of views, but I think they take the most work, at least from a mental standpoint for me, in structuring them correctly and trying to sound somewhat intelligent along the way. But yeah, I've heard there's a crazy one at the end, Andrea, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, no, I like the characters and I like the world. And the one thing I said in the video review is I like how he just embraced some of the archetypes. And I think sometimes modern fantasy authors just try to make everything too new. And I kind of like seeing dwarves and elves and orcs, even if they're renamed. But hey, Chris, thank you. Thanks for hanging out. Definitely appreciate it. I could totally see that, John. Yeah. Adapt Durfee's books like that, for sure. He could probably do a great, Zack Snyder, that is. He could probably do a great... was the Nicholas Eames book, Kings of the Wild. He could probably do that one pretty well. So, Bloodsworn. Is that the Ryan Cahill books? Because if it is, I own them all on Kindle. So I'll definitely get to those at some point. He had them on sale for like 99 cents a piece. So I bought the whole series, including all the novellas. So I do have all of those. Yes, Philip had dwarfs of a different name in his books. And I love that part of it too. So, oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to progress through this series. It's truly fantastic. Oh, Bloodsworn's Gwen. Okay. Yeah, I do need to get to John Gwyn. Don't tell Ed and Will that I haven't read their father yet, but Gwen is definitely one. I mean, there's several like gaps in my reading with fantasy genre. I mean, Gwen is there. I haven't read Tad Williams yet. So hopefully this year, maybe not. Yeah, I definitely want. Well, that's his newest series. I won't go to that one next, only because I'm trying to be very firm about only reading completed series. So with him, I'll probably start the Malice books, whatever that series is called. So let's see. All right. What is a priority series I need to read this year? Well, the first one was 5 Warrior Angels. I do want to start Sun Eater as well. I'm also reading right now non-fantasy. I'm reading the 3 Coughlin books by Dennis Lehane. Dennis Lehane is a favorite of mine. And the first one was actually more historical fiction than crime fiction. So that's on the list. Those are probably kind of the top priorities. But I also have the Neil Stevenson books just staring at me. The Quicksilver trilogy, it's called the Baroque Cycle. But those are each like 1,000 pages. So I don't know if I'll read all of those. But yeah, it's tough. There's so many series I want to read this year. And some of those I might just start for sure. Bound and the Broken, that's what it's called. Yeah. Yeah, that one I'll definitely get to. The things on the Kindle, I try to keep it a small number of books on my Kindle so that when I travel, I have enough to read, but like I don't have paralysis of what I want to start. So I'll get to those maybe by the end of the year, but I've heard great things for sure. Hey, thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. Definitely a great way to start the year. Thank you, Cyprian. Oh, cool. You saw me on Mike's channel. Yeah, that was a fun chat we had. The talk about nothing, although we talk about a lot of things for sure. Oh, sorry to hear that. Not every book series works for everybody. That's for sure. Did I read Warlord Chronicles? Blackest Heart has a Warlord moment, but much bigger and crazier. Yes, I did read the Warlord Chronicles well before I had a BookTube channel. I read them probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago. So it was really cool for me because at the time I literally had one friend that had read those books. It was very cool for me seeing BookTube discover that series. Because if you saw my top 10 favorite series list, it was number 3, number 4. I mean, it's one of my favorite book series of all time, and nobody I knew read it, and now everyone's read it. So it was very cool to me to see everybody, jump on board with Warlord Chronicles. Yeah, that's probably where I'll start, Philip, with John Gwynn's work, Faithful and the Fallen, starting with Malice, for sure. So you did Bloodsworn first, 3rd book out this year. Yeah, well, when it's done, it's possible I could jump into that. But I don't know. When I see an author that I think I'll like, or even read one book and know that I'll like them, I try to go in publication order. Like I discovered Janie Wirtz this year and just read her books with Raymond E. Feist, but I saw enough in there that it was a higher quality than Feist books, who I like a lot, don't get me wrong, that I want to read everything by Janie. So actually my next book up is Sorcerer's Legacy, her first book. But I'm reading that rather than getting into her big series, because that's kind of the later one. I want to try to progress through. So I try to do that with authors a lot of times. If I want to read a lot of their works, I may want to, just kind of read them in publication order as much as I can. Excellent question. Any plans for continuing Malazan soon? Yes, I have it. It's in ink. I'm going to try to reread Memories of Ice in July. The one thing I mentioned after reflecting upon my DNF of that book last year was that I was trying to read it in a very busy time of year. So I said, when I try again, I want to have it when I'm not, just mentally exhausted when I get home. So I'm off for the summer. So when I get back from my Europe trip in July, that's probably going to be the first book that I pick up before I get started. My contract starts late July, but probably middle of July, I'll be back to that. And hopefully it hits differently, because I went back and watched that vlog recently. And for like the first half, I was really enjoying it. And then I could just tell I was just tired, ending rehearsals at 9:30, getting home at 10 o'clock, trying to read a chapter or two where I had to really focus on what I was reading. It's just a little recipe for disaster. So July, stay tuned. I don't know if I'll do a vlog. I'm not sure. We'll see. Thank you, Derry, my fellow Hob lover. Although she has a PhD in Hob, I just have like a GED. Been here from the start. That's very, very cool. I appreciate that. Feels like a second home. Oh, this live stream was worth it just for that comment. Thank you very much. And greetings to Poland. Have a great evening and night over there. I definitely appreciate you. Any historical fiction reads on the horizon? Well, I'm continuing the Asian saga of James Clavell. Buddy reading those with Kyle and Alan. And we're doing Gai Jin in February. But I have the next 2 on the shelf. I have King Rat and Noble House. I have those ready to go too. So it's just a matter of when we get those going. And then the other big one would be Quicksilver by Neil Stevenson. So hopefully I'll get to those soon. But I read a great work of historical fiction that I didn't know was a historical fiction this month. My first book of the year was The Given Day by Dennis Lehane. And it was remarkable. And I was shocked that it wasn't one of the highest rated books of his, but I think a lot of readers probably went in thinking it was going to be crime fiction, and it was more historical fiction, and it was fantastic. So I started the year with a really good one. That's the front runner for my book of the month for sure. Oh, awesome. Shogun, top 10 book of all time for me. Loved it. Just loved his work. Mentioned Hyperion panel discussion, maybe still be on the table. No, I'm thinking about this. I had been doing, so I started the brunch and book talk kind of free for all kind of discussions that I did. I think I did 4 or 5 of them last year. I want to continue that, but I want to do what I did with the last 2 of them. I did one, actually Philip was on the one where I got 3 authors together and we talked about the craft and all of that. And I threw a lot of writer questions at them. And then the last one I did was with Alan and the Brothers Gwynn, and the focus was on historical fiction. So I think I want to do more discussions like that focused on genres or specific books. So I am thinking about potentially doing a Hyperion one for that. So stay tuned, but it wouldn't be till at least March, because February is absolutely insane for me in a very good way. I have some really great professional things going on, but there won't be time for a lot of other things for sure. Oh, yes. I will say, when I finally post the 3rd annual Red Fury Book Awards, probably next weekend, Song for Arbonne is a strong contender for my book of the year, for sure. And that's a good segue into Steve's comment, because Assassin's Fate is a strong contender for book of my life. Absolutely just adore that book. Love that book. When I finished, I don't want to ruin it for you, Steve, but when I got to the end, I honestly asked myself if I ever wanted to read again, because I felt like I'd reached the pinnacle of literature. So I hope you have the same feelings as I do with that series, but I absolutely just adore Robin Hobb's writing in that series. And I already have it penciled in my spreadsheet on the reread tab. So maybe give it a year or two and I'll reread the whole Realm of the Elderlings again. I'll never catch up with Derry, but maybe I'll read it 3 or 4 times in my lifetime, like I've done with Lord of the Rings. So we have just a few minutes left before my secret guests are going to pop in. So if you have any last questions for me before we get started, and did I just get fuzzy or am I going blind? What's going on there? Maybe it's my internet connection. My camera got blurry. Hopefully that's all it is. Hopefully you can still see and hear me, because my camera is blurry right now. If you can still see and hear me, please, someone just let me know. Okay, I do look blurry. Okay, it's not just... let me try something real quick. There we go. Sometimes you just turn it off and on and it works. That's great. You never know with internet what's going on. Okay, much, much better. Awesome. Yes, John, that's actually how I read it. If you treat it like individual series rather than one massive series. I read Farseer and took probably 2 months off before I read Live Ship, and that's kind of the way that I read them, and it worked really, really well for me. The doing it that way, I think, is actually better than going straight through it, because I got a little bit of a break, but when I came back, I was always just so excited to be back in the world. But yeah, I would definitely do it that way. I think I took about 1.5 to 2 years to read the entirety of the series. So yes, definitely stay hydrated for that end of Assassin's Fate. Love to see a Discord server in the future. Yeah, that's one of those things when you hit these milestones, it's always like, you know, what should I do with the channel? I mean, one of the things that I talked about doing is definitely just working on, I mentioned in the first video of the year that I want to try to kind of trim some of the fat of the channel. Since I only post once a week, I want to do more. I want to do more things that are maybe do some longer form and do less of kind of the TBR book haul types of things that unfortunately are BookTube staples, but it's kind of the direction that I'll technically go. But yeah, I thought about a Patreon, then I said, no, I don't feel that I'd give enough value for people to do that. But yeah, something definitely to consider. So yeah, Philip took 6 years to read Realm of the Elderlings, and I'm sure it's just as great spreading it out that way too. 2 years between Farseer and Live Ship. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to approach it there, for sure. Yeah, that's one of those. I've been there. I forget what the book was, but I remember reading a book on a flight and glad it was in the night because I had tears streaming down my face. But yeah, that one, I wouldn't have even wanted to have been around family members or anything like that. So, yeah, you'll definitely need a tissue box, I would say. Any last questions before I see one of my two secret guests is in the lobby? I'm going to wait till they're both here, bring them in together, and then we'll get started. Oh, they are all here. Up for reread of Hobb. Yeah, and that's the issue with rereads. There's like so many new things I definitely want to read for sure. All right, well, let me bring in my special guests, and we'll get started here. And here are my special guests, Joanna and Matt from Matt on Books. Welcome to the 5K celebration.
Good evening.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening, Matt, because it's like 8 o'clock over there. Someone else in the chat was chatting from Germany as well, too. So,
right. Okay.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Well, one reason, we'll just cut to the chase. One of the reasons that we wanted these two special guests is one of you was very prophetic with one of your comments. You'd love to see a Discord server in the future. And
how about now?
We are starting one, the three of us together. It's actually been started. We kind of did, as we talked about in our server, we kind of did like a soft open versus a hard open like the casinos did. So we've had one running for about a week and a half where we invited just like 3 or 4 of our friends to just get in there and make suggestions and work out the kinks and all of that. And we're really happy to announce that we are going to have a Discord server, the three of us together. And it's called The Fireside. And we're really excited to do that. So, Joanna or Matt, you want to kind of chime in and talk about maybe the genesis with this? Because you guys started the discussion before I was on board with it.
Ladies go ahead, first. Matt. Oh, you go first.
Okay. Yeah. No, we were, anybody who knows our channels maybe already knows this. We were hanging out a lot on the Grimoire Discord, which was run by 4 different guys. And I think both of us really liked that idea of people bringing their channels together in one Discord, not having like one Discord for every individual booktuber and they're all split up all over the place. And we were hanging out on the Grimoire quite a lot. And the guys who run the Grimoire invited us to join them as co-owners of the server. I think that was March last year. And that was awesome. But over the last, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months, something like that, the other guys kind of went less active. They're all having breaks of different lengths, which is totally understandable. I took a long break. I cannot blame anyone for doing it. But yeah, they all kind of took breaks, and Joanna and I were doing what we could to kind of keep things lively on the Grimoire, and it was big and not super active. And Joanna and I started talking and said, hey, maybe we do a new thing, and maybe we invite Josh, and maybe we 3 do it together. And that's where it all came from. Is that an accurate summary, Joanna?
That's a very good, very accurate summary. And no love lost with the Grimoire. We're still friends with those guys. They were totally understanding. And we're still members of the Grimoire. We're just no longer co-owners there. And yeah, we're just trying to do something a little bit different with the Fireside. It's not going to be quite as grandiose as the Grimoire, but it will be fun. And we'd love to have you if you'd love to join us.
Exactly.
Yeah, and Heidi, one of the things we try to make it a little easier too is just the layout. And that's one of the things we were kind of, I guess you could say, beta testing for the last week or so with some others is just looking at the layout, making sure it made fun, you know, made sense. It wasn't overwhelming to people. Because I agree, sometimes when I go into certain Discords, there's like so many different channels and it overwhelms me. And that's something that when we had our first initial talks about, we wanted to make sure that people came to it, that they didn't have that feeling. And, you know, we named it the Fireside. We want to have kind of some cozy vibes, you know, and keep the community kind of together. So, certainly if you join us, if one of you have the link ready, we can put it in the chat there if any of you want to join now.
I'll do that. Give me just a sec.
But we'll try to definitely help with that. Matt did a lot of the tech work behind the scenes, getting things set up. It's great. Evie is one of our moderators, and she's had some really great contributions already to it. And we're happy the way that it, you know, just started getting started. Thank you, Edward. I definitely appreciate you stopping by.
We wanted to make sure that people don't feel overwhelmed when they go in there. Because I know I feel that way sometimes. I enjoy a lot of the various Discords I'm a participant of, but sometimes I feel a little overwhelmed by how much content is in there, how many channels are open. And so, we are really trying to make it a little bit more of a minimal design, just keep the conversation friendly. So, and thank you to Philip. I actually had been messaging Philip. So Philip did know about the Discord and asking him for name suggestions. And he came up with some great ones. So thank you so much, Philip.
Some great ones that we rejected.
I'm sorry. We love the brainstorming, though. That's
absolutely.
where I trip up. Yeah,
absolutely. There was a lot of brainstorming going on for the name.
And I think it was fun. Once Fireside was out there, we kind of knew that was what we wanted, because that was kind of the cozy vibes I think that we want to build for that Discord community.
Yep, exactly.
And we won't be burning books, just so you know with that.
Nope. Only the really bad ones.
I have been.
I love it. I love it, Ryan. You'll try not to wreck it.
I loved them. Thank you, though, Philip. I really appreciated it. It was awesome. Yeah.
Only friendly. Oh, of course you are.
What? Of course, Anita. I'll personally send you a link, Anita.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We'd love to have you.
But yeah, we'll try to put a link. Sometimes though, well, maybe StreamYard is okay. I know YouTube doesn't like links.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe
unless you put it in the description.
StreamYard lets you put them in, but it doesn't make them links. So you have to copy them as text.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Oh, wait. Actually, it says this comment has failed to post to Red Fury Books. Okay. So
yeah, I don't think that StreamYard chat likes links either.
Yeah. So I would say after the stream, Josh can put it in the stream description.
Yeah.
I have a video which I think just dropped on my channel, which also has info. And let me just make sure. I should have a link.
Anita, you're being way too influenced by Alan. That's what that's all about.
That's what I was thinking.
Totally. You're reading all his books. Yeah.
Ryan says you could put a space between a character.
Oh, that's true.
That way. Yeah.
Put a space between, like in the middle.
It's not like a real link, but something people can cut and paste. Maybe. Is that what people mean?
Hey, Mac. Thanks for stopping by.
Hey.
I always love interacting with you in the comments section.
Oh, fantastic commenter. Yeah, yes.
Absolutely.
Mac is insane.
Mac, when are you going to start a channel? Just start a channel.
or write a
He has two videos on Tigana.
Oh, really?
I think it's on Tigana. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mac, but you said they were spoilers, so I haven't watched them because we haven't read Tigana.
Oh, yeah. We're going to read that, though, this year. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's up in April for us. So
in April. Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah. Mac.
Oh, here you go. Okay. So yeah, if you would cut and paste that and just put the two T's together at the beginning, that would work. But I will put it in the description of this video when we're done streaming, and all my future videos as well. It'll be part of just the laundry list of things that are in each comment section. So, hey, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
I'm going to get in so much trouble with Alan. If I steal Anita away from Alan, can you imagine all the comments about my treachery and betrayals? If I took Anita away.
Well, he already mentioned that about Evie. Alan was one of our beta testers of the Discord.
I had to because he was already mad at me. He got angry in the live chat on Matt's channel when Matt announced it.
Love it.
Yeah, and also just now a video went live on my channel, which is an announcement about the Discord and has links and all of that. So yeah, you shouldn't have a hard time finding links. It'll be everywhere. No, I did not put it in private chat. I put it in the comments, and it just told me it failed to post.
I'm seeing it on mine though.
Yeah, it should have.
Yeah, well, the one with the gap between the T's should be visible in the normal comments. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's funny, Chris.
It's ridiculous.
Alan has friends.
I love it.
I have a question for you, Josh. So since you obviously teach music and you love music, you listen to a lot of music, do you find that ever interferes? I guess it probably wouldn't because you listen to mostly instrumental music, but I was going to ask if that ever interferes when you're reading a book. If there's ever like a constant soundtrack, because if I listen to a piece of music, it can become an instant, constant soundtrack in my mind for like days and days and days and days until I listen to something else. But sometimes that clashes with what I'm reading. Does that ever happen to you?
Yeah, the earworm.
Audiation.
Yeah. So, but most of the time when I read, it shuts everything else out.
You're so lucky.
That doesn't affect me, but there are times where I will have a song in my head or a melody in my head or whatever, and I just have to focus on the page to do it. But it's pretty rare. Most of the time when I sit down to read a book, I almost get tunnel vision, and that's all that's going on in my life at the time. So I don't really have that trouble.
I sometimes have that trouble. And actually, I remember it happened most notably when I was reading Farseer Trilogy, and I think I was reading the third book, Assassin's Quest. And at the time, I was playing a Mario game with my husband, like a video game. And video game music is the worst. Like once I hear from a video game, it's just embedded in my skull, and I can't get it out. And it was clashing with Fitz and his journey. So like I can't. Yeah. Oh, Fitz. Yeah. So sometimes I can just go right into the story and it's not an issue. But sometimes I can't stop. I can't stop with the music.
Yeah. No, I guess I'm lucky, but I do have that, especially, teaching music all day. You'll teach a piece and then it's in your head all day. And sometimes that's a good thing. And sometimes it's not a good thing. Sometimes you don't want that piece in your head all day, but that was perfect. Fitz made an appearance right when
exactly perfect timing. Yeah. You said Fitz and boom, there she was.
There she was.
Yeah.
I'm sorry she's still waking you at 5 a.m.
Oh my God. Oh, I'm so over it.
No doubt.
I have slept a maximum of 5 hours last 4 nights because I don't know. I don't even understand why, because she used to wake me every morning at 7. Nothing's changed. Just one day she decided 5 was better. And for days it's been 5 instead.
Sounds like having a real child.
It's worse than having a real child because real children don't shed fur.
But cats are supposed to be so clean.
Yeah, I mean they are, but like long hair cats, just you find like fist-sized balls of fur around the flat pretty regularly. But enough about my adorable, annoying cat. When did you start, Josh?
January 1st, 2021.
And wow, I started January 3rd. I started 2 days after him.
January 1st sounds like such an organized.
Well, it was, but it wasn't. it was about 6 months before that was when I decided, oh, I'm gonna make a channel, and it took me about 6 months to actually film something. And my first video was horrible. I mean, it was
Everybody's first
laptop,
video
and
is horrible.
it was laptop, and just it's so bad. But I kept it up. I'm not gonna take any of those down unless I update a video. That one I may update, because that was actually, it was like reading advice. It was like 10 tips to read more in 2021, I think is what I call it. So I'll probably redo that video at some point and then maybe make that one disappear. But yeah, the first one was bad, but I was only going to do this for a couple months, because I was that year, it was the year after the height of the pandemic, but my community students chose to stay home basically. So I was basically teaching music online. I was really no longer an orchestra director, because I had 6 kids at school and I had 200 of them I was seeing on a computer screen. So I was doing more just teaching music. I wasn't really making music anymore. And it was also like an 8 to 5 job, which was kind of nice. But, you know, I was missing having some sort of creative outlet. And that's why I decided to just, I'm watching all this booktube now. Let me just make a few videos. And I thought that once my job became normal again, which was the next fall, that I'd stop doing it, but I was enjoying it. So I just kept going, and it still grew really, really slow at the start. But now that we're 5K, it's pretty remarkable to
5K is respectable.
Growth. Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
If you would have told me like 10 months into this thing, when I had like 92 subscribers, that I'd get to 5,000, I would have said, you are crazy. There's no way.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I started my channel 2 days after you started yours. And I also recorded on a laptop, and it's just the worst. Like sound, video quality, it's very fuzzy, standard definition. It's the background is horrible. It's terrible. But I guess it was a good time to start a channel, right?
Apparently so.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
it sounds so organized to me. I thought maybe I'll start a channel, and I think a week later I did. So my first video was August 17th, I think. So like totally random. Just I feel like starting a channel now, so I started a channel.
Well, mine was random too.
Yeah.
Mine was actually just a Discord joke. I was in Discord. I was actually in Gregory LaPerch's Discord. He's not active on BookTube anymore. And I noticed on my YouTube channel, because I was following all these channels at the time and commenting on a lot of people's videos, but I noticed on my YouTube account that I had like 3 subscribers or 2 subscribers, and I got a kick out of that. I thought it was hilarious. So I joked around. I was like, if I make it to the milestone of 5 subscribers, I'll do a Q&A video. And sure enough, people subscribed. And so I hadn't even had a video out yet. So I said, okay, I'll take your questions. And that was my first video. Yeah.
See, mine was purposeful only because it was a like tips to read more. When I decided that was going to be my video, I said, well, that's like a New Year's resolution for a lot of people. So I'll post that on the first. Maybe people will watch it. And it got a couple hundred views despite not having very many subscribers, but probably a lot of them were just like family and friends at that point. So I probably posted it on my personal Facebook or something like that. But yeah, it's it's cool just to see how it grows. And then you see some of these channels now that grow so fast. It's remarkable, but
it did not used to be that way back in the day.
Yeah.
I'm like, back in the day, it was a huge deal to even get 500 subscribers. And now it's like, people are getting 1,000 subscribers overnight, it seems like.
I was kind of like stupidly proud because my channel at the beginning grew pretty fast. And now I'm like looking at Brian Belltube and John Minton.
Yeah.
And you know, some of these guys, and I'm like, okay, you just like completely trashed me. Like I get no awards for speedy growth. You guys are insanely fast.
Well, like
Brian's been doing it for 8 weeks and he's got 1,000.
Well, Ian Gabelli's channel, he's been at it a couple months and he's at like 8,000 at this point.
Yeah.
So
That is.
yeah, it's remarkable when you see, you know, some of them grow like that. But
Yeah.
I also will say for both Brian Bell and John, both of them, you know, their first videos were quite polished, especially compared
Yeah.
to like where I started. So
More polished
it's
than
easy to
mine.
see how channels that already have a lot of the technical aspects looking great, looking and sounding great can be pretty successful early on, which is great. I also think BookTube is bigger than it was a few years ago. I think just a lot more people watch, you know.
It's been pretty big for a long time. It's
Has it
just
really?
different. It has. Yeah, it's been huge for a long, long, long time. I think it started, I want to say in the early 2000s, but really I think this sphere of BookTube where we're talking about epic adult fantasy, I think that is growing. That's what I think.
Gotcha.
I could be
Yeah.
wrong about that. And I do see a lot more older men on BookTube than I used to. That never was a thing. Alan was
Yeah.
the first older man I found on BookTube, and I was so
Yeah.
excited. And then I found Philip Chase, and I was like, "Oh wow, that's so cool." I'd love to see more older women too. There aren't very many older women that I know of, yeah, that's something that I've just noticed as a change. Because when I found BookTube, it was mostly young people in their 20s and mostly white. It was mostly centered around YA fantasy and
Mhm.
mostly female booktubers. There's still a lot
Yeah.
of them, but yeah,
If you
that's
just do a general search for BookTube, you find a lot of pretty white girls.
Mhm.
And at the beginning, I thought, I'm not pretty. I am white, but I'm definitely not pretty or a girl. What am I going to do? Can I do this? And then I found Mike, and I thought,
Yeah.
you don't have to be pretty.
Poor Mike.
You don't have to be a girl.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding. Mike's
But
a
you're right. You're
good-looking
right about
man.
Mike, though. I think because Mike was successful, and I mean, still is, obviously.
Yeah.
I think he inspired a lot of us to give it a shot because I think, in addition to him just being, you know, not the general demographic you might normally see on BookTube, he's also just kind of gives off the air that he's just a regular guy, you know. And I think for a lot of us that would never picture ourselves doing something like this, we're like, hey, he just seems like a guy that I'd sit down and chat with. Maybe I could do this too. And I always see that with a lot of booktubers mention Mike as kind of their initial inspiration for doing this. So I know he was one of mine. I actually found his channel first. This was the very first booktube channel I watched.
Nice.
Oh, you're a hipster. I found Daniel Green first, and
Same.
I enjoyed watching him, but like obviously we don't have a lot in common other than being white. And then once I found Mike, I was like, oh, okay, like guys with gray hair can do this too. That's cool.
Yeah.
And that was much more inspiring to me because I can't do the Daniel Green show, nor do I want to.
No, but it works for him. So
why are we giving you an existential crisis?
Yeah, why are we giving you an existential crisis? Tell us why, please.
You're young and pretty. The only thing that's missing is white, and it's much more interesting having people who aren't.
Yes, I agree. We definitely need more diversity in adult epic fantasy. This corner of BookTube, there is some, but we need more, I think.
Yeah.
Aren't you like 15, 20 years too young to call yourself a Gen Xer, Neva? I'm a Gen Xer. Like
what is Gen X? Like what year? Because I hear different interpretations of what Gen X is.
Like born in the 70s to early 80s? Ish.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was born in like the last month of 1969. So
yeah. So he's with
I
us.
Just scraped in. Okay. Okay. You look a lot fresher than your age, which is cool. I feel like I look my age.
There we go. Gen X
starts at 65. Okay. Yeah. So I'm firmly in.
I had the best time watching.
I knew that Alan would turn up and be offended that
I called
Joanna
you old
called him
because I
old.
was because I was excited to see somebody who was not in their early 20s on BookTube. That's all I meant. But you're very very young at heart.
Thanks, Alan. Yeah.
Exactly.
Love it.
As if Alan needed another reason to be pissed off at Joanna.
I know. And Anita wants to be my friend now.
Yeah. We're taking all your friends, Alan. Yeah, exactly what Derry said. Nabo, you don't look anything like 48.
Oh, really? 1979 is the last year of Gen X? Ah, then I'm not
Yeah,
Gen X.
that seems right. Yeah, if it's 65, 79, I mean,
I
yeah.
thought I was Gen
Yeah.
X. Oh well. I was loving Talking Stories discussion the other day, his live stream, because they were talking about the 80s, and he was saying, do you guys remember when like girls would make you a mixed tape? Like it was the best thing when a girl would make you a mixed tape. And then there were people in the chat saying, I remember burned CDs. I was dying. It was like the best live stream. I loved it. I love that
Oh,
so
that's
much.
funny.
It used to be you couldn't date yourself with technology, but now you can date yourself down to like a 5-year period based on technology. Like I made mixtapes when I was a teenager, you know.
I made it for
and
myself.
I made them for myself. I made them for girls. I occasionally got one from a girl, that kind of thing. I was too much of a nerd to get lots of mixtapes from girls, but some. And yeah, no, that was and recorded from the radio, like Derry says.
Yes, like
Yes.
sit by your
Waiting next to the radio, like I'm
Yeah,
gonna
ready
push the
to hit
button. Now
two
the
buttons.
DJ said,
Yeah.
okay, push.
the 2 buttons, record and play at the same time.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
remember that. Yes.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
funny.
Now do you see why we have a Discord together? I said
Aging
to
myself.
a couple of people were asking me about like what's going on with the Grimoire and the new Discord. And I said, yeah, like Josh and Joanna are awesome people. So I'm really happy to start a Discord with them. And they're much more age appropriate.
An age appropriate Discord.
Exactly. Exactly. A retirement Discord.
Oh man.
Oh,
Oh
look
my
at
goodness.
that.
You win, John.
That is hot. Very sexy. I love that story.
That is pretty damn hot. Yeah.
That's one of those high achievements, man.
Were there
I'd
like
marry
Bryan
that girl
Adams
too.
songs? I want to know what songs
Yes.
are on there.
Bryan Adams, Mike and the Mechanics, maybe some Genesis. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that story
Great.
so much. I love that.
Wrote poetry on the tape.
I did have
label.
a guy make me a tape of a song he wrote for me in high school, and it
My
was
goodness.
called Joanna, I Didn't Ask for These Dreams. And I didn't take the hint.
You didn't take the hint. You didn't get that.
I didn't get that he liked me
That
in that
didn't
way.
trigger anything in your head. Like
I think
it
I
didn't
just
occur to
didn't
you.
want to. I didn't want to admit that because I liked him as a friend.
I
So I was
think
like, "Oh, thank
obviously.
you. It's very nice of you." But he was Mormon, so apparently he was very conflicted that he couldn't ask me out because I wasn't Mormon. So it didn't happen anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
That wasn't a hint.
Yeah. It
That
always
was him
surprised.
smacking her upside the head with a mixtape. Damn. But he, I mean, okay, now I'm a lot happier hearing that he was a Mormon and it couldn't have gone anywhere anyway, because I mean, could have been your love of your life. Damn.
We were in theater class together. It was a lot of fun. So we acted out and plays and stuff, and I had a good time with him.
Not as good a time
Maybe.
as he wanted to have.
I'm blushing now. That's funny.
I think a lot of songs are written like that, where it's the songwriter just by themselves. It's a troubadour thing, like Arbonne. It's unrequited love, and they see the person they love. Like, remember that song 10 years ago, maybe, the Hey There Delilah?
Oh yeah.
Like, that was a classmate of his. It wasn't it wasn't a lover or whatever. And became a one-hit wonder for just someone that he just admired from a distance. So I think that's kind of common.
What do the kids do today? I mean, like sending someone a link to Spotify just doesn't really feel very romantic.
It doesn't feel the same. No, I agree.
I mean, even if you've curated a playlist, just somehow it feels a little weak.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
No.
Well, it's also like when I was a kid, you'd pass notes.
Oh yes.
but now they text. There's
You
no
just text
passing
each
notes.
other. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
the same.
My mom just came across a huge box just full of notebook paper, of notes, of letters back and forth between my friends and me when I was younger. And I was like, please burn those. Please just burn them. She said, I can tell why you're embarrassed. But I guess she read some of them. I hope not.
So, hey, if you are new here, we announced about 30 minutes ago, the three of us have formed a Discord server. And as Derry pointed out, we have assassin elf emojis in the Discord. So there's another draw for you to join the Fireside Discord.
I just posted one in the Hangout channel on the Discord.
Awesome. So,
and that may have actually convinced Herr Professor Dr. Philip Chase to join our Discord.
We will make a special emoji for you, Philip.
We will so make a Herr Professor Doctor emoji. I'll do that in a second.
Yay.
Brad and Karen Carpenter, you're getting a bit too old there, Heidi.
I don't know Brad.
I don't know when
Brad
John
either.
was.
Yeah,
I know Brad and Karen Carpenter, and they were like 60s or maybe 70s, but they certainly weren't. Like you gotta factor in the growing up thing. Like I didn't start making mixtapes for anybody until I was a teenager. And I was born in 69, but obviously I wasn't a teenager until the 80s. So it was more like Duran Duran and that kind of stuff. Although I didn't listen to that garbage. I was into old music when everybody was listening to horrible 80s music. Oh my God.
I listened to so much horrible 80s music because I shared a bedroom with my sister who was a teenager in the 80s. And she had like this little black stereo and she was always playing the radio. And I was too young to know how to mute or turn off the stereo. So she would leave and I'd be laying in bed for hours upon hours listening to 80s radio. So I have all those songs like embedded in my brain. Yeah, it's crazy. But I'll tell you this. People do not sing the way that they sang in the 80s. I have to say it, as cheesy as it was, the men in those love songs.
I'm really happy that people don't sing the way they sang in the 80s.
The power ballads were amazing.
There was no good music made in the 80s.
But there was
unless it was punk. There was some really awesome punk that was starting to come out in the 80s. But my God, the mainstream music was such garbage. Ugh.
So
I have an admiration.
So to pivot, there's a good question in the chat that all three of us can answer here. Christopher's just trying to get into fantasy. What book would you recommend? I have probably the least popular answer, but I think it's a good one. I think Gardens of the Moon. No, I think Pawn of Prophecy by David Eddings is a perfect first fantasy book because the Belgariad by David Eddings teaches you the fantasy tropes because he embraces every last one.
All of them.
And if you're a seasoned reader, it's not a book that I would ever probably recommend for someone who's read Malazan or even, a lot of the more modern fantasy things. But for people just getting into the genre, I think it's a perfect entry point. So that's
the Belgariad. The Belgariad is Lord of the Rings light.
It is. I think, and I think it's a perfect entry point. So
that is interesting. You're right. I never would have.
So that's my answer. What are your answers to this one?
I never tried the Belgariad, but I tried the Elenium trilogy by Eddings like 3 or 4 times when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And I kept on getting a little further every time and then DNFing and then getting a little further every time and then DNFing. And I could not get through that trilogy.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Eddings, the problem with Eddings, so the Belgariad was his first fantasy work. And when he realized his formula worked, he just kept coming back to it, but with less effort, in my opinion, because every subsequent series, the characterization was just lazier and just the storytelling was a lot less compelling. And the Elenium was probably the last one I read because I didn't go on to the one after that because that one was so bad. I felt the characters were just so weak, but no, for first foray, I like the Belgariad.
I would. I think a lot of the reason that maybe people today have or especially younger people today, have a bit of difficulty with Lord of the Rings, is that they've read a lot of things that evolved out of Lord of the Rings 20, 30 more years later. I would almost recommend Lord of the Rings, because if you want to know where fantasy as a genre, as we experience it and perceive it today, began, it's there. And
Yeah.
everyone's seen the movies. But it is written maybe in a slower way, in a more thoughtful way than a lot of things that, make a lot of noise these days. I've heard a lot of people also say Mistborn.
I think that's a good modern fantasy entry point.
Yeah. I think it's not bad. I think it's because it's got what I consider a pretty weird magic thing going on, and also it's basically magic as science, which I personally hate. I would never recommend it to anyone. I enjoyed it. Like, don't get me wrong. I actually read the first and second Mistborn's series and enjoyed them, but yeah, I would tend to go more with John talking story and say The Hobbit. Although if you don't know what you're expecting, The Hobbit can feel a bit childish, maybe, if you're an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always hesitant to recommend Tolkien as the first one, though, only because I've just seen a lot of modern readers that, don't get me wrong, I love it. It's the only thing besides Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderlings that it's my second favorite series ever. But I love Lord of the Rings, but I see a lot of modern readers just struggle with the prose and the storytelling. That's why I usually just hesitate to make that like the very first one. Like I would recommend Belgariad. Then if you like that, now I'll go read.
Anitha has a good recommendation as well. Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. Earthsea is also, like, I don't know if Earthsea. I think, like, if you've never read fantasy before, read Earthsea. It's awesome, no problem. But I also feel like Earthsea is kind of unique in fantasy. It doesn't give you much of a feeling for this is what most fantasy is kind of like. But as far as a really well written story with really interesting characters and magic and dragons and shit, it's an excellent story.
Yeah, and they're shorter books too. So it's
not as challenging.
You're not jumping into a big chunker right away.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the crippled god. Go for it.
Yeah.
I haven't read Earthsea yet. I just read The Dispossessed by Le Guin, and I'm thinking that I would love anything Le Guin writes at this point because I love that book so much. But I think that one recommendation I would have, two recommendations, three maybe. One might be, even though this isn't, I don't even think this would be like a top 10 series for me. I could be wrong because it's been a while, but maybe Kingkiller, maybe The Name of the Wind. And I say that because that particular book, which I think is stronger in my opinion than The Wise Man's Fear, or I just preferred it more than The Wise Man's Fear, the second book.
I would agree with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah. That book though was the book that got my husband to fall in love with fantasy again as an adult. And so I think that could be a good one because the prose is pretty good. I thought it was good. I know some people have criticized it, but I thought it was good prose, and I think it's good at transporting you, and it's still, I think, fits. It's not too childish. It's not too young, but it'll still immerse you in a fantasy world, and still it has a little bit of darkness to it, a little bit of grit. Mistborn does seem to be a good entry point for a lot of people. I would say if you're going to go the Sanderson route, then I would recommend Warbreaker, who's standalone.
Yeah.
I also, I just like that particular book better, but and it's a standalone, so
yeah.
Just looking at
there we go. Actually, I mean, Harry Potter is a valid choice. I mean, it's low fantasy, but yeah.
And if you really want to get into fantasy and read the thing that Harry Potter was ripped off from, read the comic, The Books of Magic.
Okay.
Yeah. The Books of Magic it's crazy when you read it because you're like, oh my God, this is like totally a ripoff of Harry Potter. It's a short, thin, dorky, dark-haired kid with glasses who gets magic powers, and I think he also has a weird scar, and learns to be a wizard and all of this sort of stuff in our modern world. And when I first encountered that comic, I was like, "Oh my god, J.K. Rowling's lawyers have got to be sharpening their knives." And then I looked at like when it was published, and I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And it was written by Neil Gaiman.
Oh wow.
As John Mitten points out.
Oh, that's a cool. And Neil Gaiman's also a good entry point into fantasy. I DNF'd American Gods, much to Fantasy Awash's dismay and Philip Chase's dismay, many, many, many years ago. So maybe I'll try it again someday. But I have to say that American Gods is the most popular fantasy book among everyone I know outside of BookTube. All of my friends, family,
Yeah.
everyone I come across who I talk to about fantasy, American Gods is like a favorite book for them. So,
although there I would also say, like, it's not at all like any or most fantasy you ever find outside of Neil Gaiman's work. You know,
that's true.
It doesn't give you a feeling for like, oh, what's traditional epic fantasy like? You know,
that's true.
But
I mean, this isn't epic fantasy either, but The Ocean at the End of the Lane is my
favorite.
Gaiman.
Love it.
Yeah,
I've only read 2 by Gaiman, but that one is my favorite. I've read American Gods as well, but Ocean at the End of the Lane was, it was what I was hoping Stephen King's fairy tale was going to be.
Yeah, well said. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Gaiman's novels, I think, are also really nice bridges. You know, they are very fantastical, but most of them are not in a secondary world. They're mostly our world where something's weird, you know, and so it gives you that magical fantasy vibe, but you don't have to learn like a whole new language and what are these 10 sentient species and blah blah blah, you know.
Yeah, he's really good at that.
This is a good point, Anita, because I keep seeing this my colleagues at work reading this like crazy, and I'm like, oh,
really?
But yeah,
I hope you're not shaming them, though. Are you being nice to them?
I'm
okay,
not. Good. We have things at work. It's a sign like what Mr. Blah 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 is reading this or reading this, and I walked by like 3 classrooms in the last month, and fourth wing. Okay. Yeah.
It's not my vibe, but I try really hard to be like encouraging and happy for people if they're picking up any book, you know.
Anyone that's read what you want.
Exactly. Yes.
I'd have a really hard time saying, "Oh, you're reading that." Well, if you want to read some good fantasy, here's a list. You know?
Not the gatekeeper here.
No, I'm inviting them in. It's just you're going through the wrong gate.
Exactly.
That's a good way to look at it.
Gates over here. This is
we should
awesome gate.
We should totally make a gate emoji for the fireside.
Exactly.
Discord. That would be funny.
Yeah. Yeah, and also as John, again, like guy with gray hair, so I agree with him on almost everything apparently. Sandman, like it's not a novel. It's not a novel. It's not a place. I'd like if he had more of a beard. I mean, he'd look like, well, if I was thinner and he had more of a beard.
John, you have beautiful silver hair.
Absolutely.
I'll just say that.
Absolutely, no question. But Sandman, like as a comic, it's like one of the absolute masterpieces of fantasy comics ever. Also by Neil Gaiman, and oh my god, it's so good.
But she saw that.
That's the perspective. If they ask me, then I'll tell them. Like, you know. But no, it's not my thing, and probably not.
I haven't read it, so I can't really speak.
I've seen enough to know that it's not going to be for me. But I think that's like a lot of things. You know, we can make a pretty educated guess as to a lot of things we may enjoy or not, and I'm pretty sure that's not one that's for me.
Yeah. I always have kind of a filter in my head where things fall into I have no idea, but probably not. and I have no idea, but maybe, you
Yeah.
know? And then occasionally, like, I have no idea, but sounds pretty damn like my thing, like, you know? And
Yeah.
I've got no time for, I've got no idea, but probably not. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just not interested. There are so many books I'm much more confident will be my thing
Yeah.
that I'm not going to risk it and waste my time on Fourth Wing, you know?
Yeah. I'd never want to totally dismiss something because you never know. But yeah, you're right. There's so many things like I want to read this. Well, like your video I just watched this morning. I swear you talked about 100 books that you want to read this year. So it's like, why would Fourth Wing get in there? And you have all these other things that sound amazing, you know?
I don't think Matt was the intended audience when it came to Fourth Wing too, to be fair.
No, I'm pretty sure they weren't aiming at me.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you, Nikki. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Appreciate it. Is Britain really reading it? Oh, it was a viewer's choice. Yeah, that's why I started doing viewer's choice on the channel, but basically I'm taking books from my physical TBR and giving them a vote from it because I don't want
That's better. Yeah.
be forced to read something like that.
Here is a limited list of things I do want to read. Which one should I read?
Yeah, and it's been great, you know.
Yeah.
One of them's my next book. Sorcerer's Legacy is up next because the viewers picked that one. So I'm
Sorcerer's Legacy.
What is that from? That's
Jenny Wirtz. That's her first book.
Oh yes, that's right. Okay.
Oh right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's up next once I finish this next Lahane book I'm reading. So yeah, that's the thing. You never know. Like you might not pick up a book and then you hear someone talk about it.
I'm so curious about Empire of the Umpire. I have heard Mike gush about it, and I loved his interview with Jay Kristoff.
Yeah.
Like Jay Kristoff sounds like a guy I would love to have a beer with. And he's an Aussie, so it was really nice to hear the accent. And I bought it, but I've heard so many conflicting things about it. And it sounds like if you don't mind edgelord kind of posing, then it's awesome. And if you do, then it's intolerable. And I kind of think I might fall in the latter group there, but I haven't tried it yet. I don't know.
I'm going to guess that's not going to be for me, but I would be very curious to hear your thoughts, Matt.
Yeah.
I think that's the case a lot of times, especially when we watch a lot of channels and we start to understand people's tastes and things like that. I think it's easy to often predict pretty accurately, in my opinion, at least the channels I watch most frequently, when I hear someone talk about a book, if it's going to work for me. Like one that's very popular right now that I can guarantee like 99% certainty I would hate is Dungeon Crawler Carl, whatever that.
Oh yeah. I DNF'd that recently.
Yeah, well, I heard, and the thing that the straw that broke the camel's back is Jay over at Captured in Words. He did a really good video the other day of, fast palate cleansers, and I'm always looking for those. And he talked about it, but then he read an excerpt or the audio excerpt, and I heard the excerpt. And I'm like, oh yeah, I would hate this thing. It was like just enough of it. It's you hate to dismiss a whole genre, but I think for me, lit RPG and progression fantasy is a no-go.
I think I'm probably in that camp too.
I've just I found myself like this was just last month actually. I found myself judging that whole area of books, not really having much of an idea. And I always kind of hate myself when I find myself judging something I really know nothing about. So I was like, okay, screw it. Like the lit RPG thing that everyone seems to be raving about right now is Dungeon Crawler Carl. If I hate that, that's probably a good test. And the funny thing is, I think a lot of people, I would say, like if you're around my age, it's probably not your thing. But for me, the problem was I'm a gamer. That was why I didn't like it, which I think is funny because I think that's the reason a lot of people do like it. I don't want to read about someone playing a video game.
Yeah.
Like I want to play a video game. And like the whole time I was audiobooking it, the whole time I was listening to it, I was thinking, Well, I've got these 3 games lined up, and I would rather play any of them than listen to this. It's like boring to me to hear a description of someone clicking on menus in a video game, which is literally something that happens in that book quite a lot. And there's humor. I mean, there's good humor in it. You know, it was actually quite funny in places. But once it got past the setup and they got into the dungeon and he's basically living in a video game, then I was like, whoa, this is boring. I am not excited by any of this. And occasionally there's a joke that makes me chuckle a little bit, but no.
Yeah.
Question in the chat. Any of us read The Lightning Struck Heart?
By TJ Klune.
Yeah, I haven't.
I have not either.
I don't know that one. Palette Cleanser Outlaw by Angus Donald. No BookTube love, though. Never heard of that author. But
neither have I.
But Josh did a wonderful video on underhyped or underappreciated fantasy. So
yeah, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. I got a lot of eyes on that one too. So hopefully a lot of people, well, like Heidi had mentioned, she had read Deathstalker, which was Jonathan's pick. So hopefully a lot of people do read a lot of those. But yeah, I feel the same way, Chris. It's just like I don't want to mix those genres. Like even the progression fantasy thing. I tried Cradle and I DNF'd that first book, and I didn't like the way it was written was part of it, but yeah, it's I don't know. I guess I don't want that aspect of my literature. The furthest I can go with it is sometimes I feel Sanderson's action sequences almost take on a video game type feel, and that's about the furthest I can go with it. You know, like you can, Callan ran out of Stormlight, and you see him fall, and it's like, oh, that's straight out of a video game, you know.
Exactly. You got to wait for your meter to refill.
Yeah, that's about as far as I can go.
Yeah, I mean, I would enjoy a video game like that. It's nice that both of you guys gave it a shot, though. Gave progression fantasy a shot before writing it off. I know for me, I like to say never say never. It doesn't sound like the type of subgenre that would appeal to me, but I could be proven wrong about just about anything. So.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I always hate to dismiss something. But like Matt said, you have so many books you really want to read. You know, why take that chance?
And like you said, Josh, you develop a bit of a feeling for somebody else's taste, and I would say, knowing you, Joanna, don't waste your time.
Yeah.
There was a discussion on Twitter recently with Mike, and somebody wrote, "Oh man, you really have to." I forget what the book was, but you really have to read this. And I immediately replied and said, "Mike, you will hate that. Do not read it."
Well, what was it? What was it?
I don't remember. It was something that I had read and I liked, but that I just thought, knowing Mike, like his taste and my taste overlaps 70%, but there's a controversial 30%, you know?
Yeah.
And this was definitely somewhere in that 30% where I was like, dude, just don't do it. I can tell you right now what you're going to think of it.
I remember when Mike read Cradle, and he got through like 2 books and hated it. And he just said, "Do you guys watch my channel? Why did you think I would like it?"
Why did you recommend this to me? Great for someone, but you should be clear that it's not great for me. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's kind of that weird thing. It's like, well, you liked the Dark Tower, you like the Gunslinger. Here, try Cradle. I like this, you'll like this too. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
No. That's a good question. What is your favorite classic? I would instinctively say The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner.
Haven't
read
Faulkner.
Faulkner.
Faulkner is like
intimidating.
I don't think he's intimidating or should be, but he was kind of experimental. And a lot of his work I still find kind of experimental. He wasn't just writing a straightforward story. Like the beginning of Sound and the Fury is a description of people playing golf from a mentally disabled child's point of view. And you read it and like for pages, you don't know what the hell's happening. It's weird and interesting, but you don't know what they're describing. And eventually it clicks and you're like, Oh, golf. Okay. It's really like
Hmm.
I think he's an absolute or was an absolute genius. But
There
yeah,
are a few things in life I find more boring than golf. So I just don't know if that would be for me.
it's not the book is not at all about golf. The thing that particular passage is about is experiencing through reading the perspective of a mentally limited child. And that's what's really interesting about it. The golf part is like totally boring. Like I don't care about golf either. It's the most boring sport in the world, unless you're playing it. But
I think that the rogue stole my answer because I was going to say that. I was going to say Frankenstein. I read that in high school though. So that was a long time ago, but I still remember how impactful it was on me at the time. And I had a wonderful English teacher that summer. I had a terrible English education in high school, but I had a fantastic English teacher one summer when I took summer school. And I had the most fantastic discussions about that book. And I just remember that being very impactful on me. So I think I would go with that. I am notoriously very ill read when it comes to classics, but I am reading Rebecca by Du Maurier right now and loving it. So we'll see about that one as well.
Did Murphy get you to read that? Because I know she loves Du Maurier.
So I know she's definitely been an influence. Alan's also been a huge influence on me picking that up. He did a wonderful review of that book a few years ago. So that makes 19 books I picked up because of Alan. Anyhow, but actually what happened was I was on Saturday Night Nights last year on Mike's channel, Mike's Book Reviews with Andrew's Wizardly Reads and Jack in the Book Stack. Jack also loves Rebecca by Du Maurier. She reads a lot of classics. And somehow Andrew and I decided to, I guess as a result of that, we decided to buddy read the book together. So Andrew and I are currently buddy reading Rebecca together. And it's
That's great.
really fun. We're just reading like a couple of chapters a day. And there's a lot to comment on. And it's so immersive. It just immediately pulls you in. Really well written.
what about you, Josh? Was Heidi right?
No, close though. My favorite would be East of Eden.
Okay.
Oh, I love East of Eden. Oh, well, I don't know if you saw my top 10 books.
I did.
Screw Frankenstein.
I know. Well, I loved East of Eden too. It's hard. It's hard to like. pit
Yeah,
them
I'm
against
currently
each other.
reading Steinbeck's kind of back catalog. I've read all the big ones, and I'm going to read To a God Unknown next month. I think I have that penciled in, but yeah, I love Steinbeck. I love East of Eden. I love Count of Monte Cristo too. I've read a lot of classics. I went through a big phase at one point where I read almost like a classic a month. I was reading a lot of them. So I love a lot of them. Jane Eyre is a favorite as well. But East of Eden's probably my top. Oh, and of course, Crime and Punishment, which the plan is to read that every 5 years of my life.
I'm
And,
hoping to read that this year, if possible. I don't know if I can, but my mom, actually, the last time I visited my parents for Christmas, she just would not stop getting after me about reading Crime and Punishment.
yeah,
I think it's her favorite book of all time. So
yeah, it's fantastic. And I'm putting this on the screen. I need to write this down since I am a Wagner fan. Siegfried by Alex Alice. A take on Wagner's Ring Cycle. That is my favorite operas.
I have a friend. I'm very close to somebody, or was very close to somebody who was Siegfried in
Oh,
Germany for
wow.
many years. Yeah.
Wow.
He's a Wagnerian tenor, a Helden tenor,
Yeah.
and also did Tristan. Now, I've never watched the complete Ring Cycle. I know it's a big failure of mine as a musician, but I took a whole music theory class on
Mhm.
Tristan und Isolde. So
Oh, wow.
I
Yeah.
fell in love with that opera like you would not believe. I love that opera so much. I know that Wagner is a problematic person, but I still love that opera.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway.
He's the poster child of separating the art from the artist.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Him and
Yes.
James Brown.
But no, I own the DVDs. I have 2 Ring Cycle DVD sets of well, 1 DVD, 1 Blu-ray, because I guess when I bought them, of the Met. And one of them's the traditional Otto Schenk production, which is remarkable. But then the other one is the new one, which I satisfied something in my bucket list. I went to New York City, and when they did the Robert Lepage production, I saw Die Valkyrie the opening week that it was there. So part of the video is I was probably there. And it was really, really neat. They created this big, basically they created a moving set where the floor was like all these long planks, but it could invert, it could bend, and they did all these like light things, and it was remarkable what they were able to do with this set. It was crazy. Yeah, I love those operas.
I really wish I could talk about music on my channel. Like, I don't know how channels get away with doing that, like, because there are channels that are like music commentary channels. Like,
Yeah.
How do they do that and stay monetized and like, or not get demonetized or not get taken down? Because I love music.
Well, sometimes I think it depends. I have a tiny channel of my my orchestra where I put performances here and there on it. And one time I was doing, just with that channel before I had this channel, I did a video for the kids. I think it was during pandemic, and I used just like a CD MP3 or something of some Beethoven, and it got flagged. But all it was, it's not a strike, but you will get like they will take your ad revenue or something like that. So that might be the case with some.
The one video will be demonetized.
Yeah.
But it won't be taken down, or you don't have a copyright problem or something like that.
Or in the case of this one, it just the ads were for whatever company that was that produced the CD. So
okay,
that might be part of it too. So
okay.
Yeah.
Dallas asked about Italo Calvino. Yes, I've read some Italo Calvino. I loved now I'm blanking on the name. Jerome, help me out. Jerome is in the chat and he knows what I'm talking about. I love it when you have
Calvino.
A few loyal enough viewers that you talk to enough that you can use them as your memory.
I've read If on a Winter's Night.
If on a Winter's Night, a Traveler. Yes.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the one I'm thinking of, and I have Cosmocomics, but I haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
And I really liked If on a Winter's Night, a Traveler. It blew my mind when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And had never read anything even slightly similar because it's meta as hell.
Yeah.
It's extremely meta. Yes, Jerome, I know I should read Cosmocomics. He's been irritating me about that.
It's a fun book to discuss, though. I read that when I still lived in Dallas, and there was a book club that I was in, and we got together every month. We did that one month, and that was good discussion for sure. Something like that. But thank you, Christine. Appreciate it. And sorry you also the victim of some DNF with me too. Yes, definitely read Count of Monte Cristo. It's fantastic. I even read what is known as a bad translation, and I still loved it. So
that's the other thing, is just making sure to get the best translation.
Yeah.
I need to figure that out for Crime and Punishment. So if you have any good...
Pavir and Volohansky. Those are my go-tos. When I reread it next, that's the one I'll read again. Because I read I got in a Russian literature phase at one point too. When I read the old Constance Garnett translation, it just didn't work for me. And there's something that Richard Pavir and Larissa Volohansky do with the verb tense that someone smarter than me could explain. But there's something they do that makes it just so much more readable. And that book in particular, I read it, and the first time, I think I gave it like 3 stars. And then the second time, it was like one of my favorite books ever. So I definitely recommend them. They get a bad rap because Oprah mentioned them one time. So, most academics, if someone in their field becomes popular, they're all of a sudden bad, even though they've been winning translation prizes their whole career. But
Oprah likes some good books.
They're my go-to for Russian literature, is Pavir and Volohansky for sure.
Death of Ivan Ilyich is something. It's very short.
I was gifted that by the wonderful Matt, so I'm excited to get to that. Not you, but a different Matt.
No, not me.
Yeah,
I read it in high school, and I still remember it vividly, which is bizarre for me. It left an extremely lasting impression.
I know Jimmy was saying that it reminded him of Stoner. I don't know how, but I'm
I can see that in a way. Arselane is asking in the comments, what's the best book to get into Russian literature? I'd actually, not that I know anything about Russian literature, but I'd recommend The Death of Ivan Ilyich because it's amazing. It's Tolstoy and it's short.
Yeah, Tolstoy is definitely easier than Dostoevsky. There's always
Yeah.
a lot less characters, and it's definitely shorter. I would recommend. I have a bunch of short story collections because I think one of the challenges of reading Russian literature, I think it's often a challenge to keep track of characters because they often have like 4 different ways that they're called depending on who's talking about them. So I think sometimes shorter fiction, when there's definitely less characters, it's a lot easier. Like I have some short fiction of Pushkin that's very good, Gogol. Actually, Chekhov would probably be the top choice for me, but once you get into the groove of Russian literature, it flows and you understand the characters so much better. Dallas also mentioned John Irving. John Irving is like a love-hate writer for me. He's either like 5 stars or 2 stars in my mind. But some of his 5 stars are remarkable. World According to Garp, Cider House Rules, A Prayer for Owen Meany. Those are probably the 3 I love. And then just some others that are just like bad, in my opinion. He's not the most consistent for sure.
I read Garp and liked it a lot, long time ago, but
Yeah.
I don't think I've read any other Irving.
Great book. I don't know if you saw this one, Matt.
Yes, I saw that.
Okay.
Jerome has been actually he sort of stopped, but once I bought it, he got very excited and was pinging me kind of regularly to get to it and read it. And I want to, I really do, but I haven't gotten to it yet. I haven't even finished my reread If on a Winter's Night a Traveler. Invisible Cities I have also not read. It's also Calvino. But I'd like to read everything by him. And Borges. Borges is like in that world of older, kind of weird, kind of experimental, kind of philosophical stuff. I've got a Borges fictions by Borges, which is just a whole bunch of short stories that are meant to be amazing.
Oh, I've heard of that. I've heard of that book, I think.
Haven't gotten, Ficciones. And I haven't gotten to that yet.
Have you guys read Master and Margarita? It's wild. It's so good. Bulgakov. Yeah. Great book. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Yeah, and Laura, I agree with this one. I mean, Anna Karenina is huge, but it reads like a soap opera. It's a really easy read.
And everyone has the same name, apparently.
But you get used to it. It's surprisingly easy read. Yeah, I need to check that out. The BBC adaptation of War and Peace. I read that 2 years ago, and I didn't give it the highest rating, but it's stuck with me a lot longer than some of the other works that I read at the same time. So,
also says 100 Years of Solitude. Yes, 100 Years. Gabriel Garcia Marquez is amazing.
I struggled with that book, though.
Yeah. Did you read that last year? I remember some people reading that last year and having some struggles with it, but I would definitely like to give that a shot at some point.
That and Love in the Time of Cholera. I read those quite a while ago, but I loved them.
Yeah. Did Fitz run through? I missed it.
Fitz is up there, but a bit further down. Big floofy tail.
It's coming along. I actually got some books in the mail today, and I've been adding to the collection. So
no, it looks great.
Yeah, and I mean, if anybody doesn't know, the reason I don't have a big collection is because about 10 years ago, I was living in an apartment, and so my husband and I were just really trying to be as minimal as possible before moving into a house. So I had unhauled a lot of books back then. I didn't have a whole lot, and I used the library like crazy, especially when I started getting into reading again. And I found that using the library was the best decision in my life. I saved so much money, and it was perfect for me because I was just getting back into reading and I didn't really know my exact reading taste. I knew I loved fantasy, but I didn't know exactly what kind of fantasy. So using the library just allowed me to experiment and read all types of different genres and or just different types of books. And then when we moved into a house, now I live very far from the local library. It's very it takes a lot of time to get out there. It costs gas. It's just not very convenient. And then the titles I want to read are usually ones I have to order through interlibrary loan. So that's why I've been slowly building my collection ever since I moved into this house. And why I'm starting to look like a real book channel now, I hope.
I was the same way because I owned a condo for a while, but after that, I was in a couple of apartments, and it was the same way. I didn't have room to expand. But then when I bought the house, one of the requirements was to have a wall so that I could have my, I've always wanted that my entire life. And then it was like, okay, now I need to fill it up. And now I have a wall with 5 bookshelves, and I have 3 more elsewhere. So it's almost out of control though. So I need to.
Joanna's shelves are I like Joanna's shelves because there's so little space, and they're if a book is on Joanna's shelf that she loves it.
Yes, I try.
It's not just like, oh, I read this, whatever. It's like a curated collection of the finest.
I am trying with that. I mean, some books have been gifted to me. And then, for example, my friend from Secret Sauce of Storycraft, who's a sci-fi channel, she was unhauling a bunch of books from her bookshelf and a lot of sci-fi books. And so she just sent me a box today I just got. And because it's her unhaul and books I'm curious about, I know she's not going to be offended if I unhaul them later. If I decide, maybe I don't want to read Gideon, then I'm on the fence. So, it's kind of nice to have a few extra books on there. But yes,
I just watched her Octavia Butler video like a couple days ago.
Amazing.
That was a fantastic video, and I told her I was kind of wanting, like, this video needed to be made, because I think so many of us know Kindred and we know Parable of the Sower, but we don't know anything else beyond that. So I'm definitely going to be reading that short story collection later this year. That'll be a priority for me. But
I just bought it.
Yeah, that was
because of that video.
Yeah, that video was fantastic.
Oh,
and I was surprised
that
also.
Video.
I was also surprised.
It doesn't have enough.
Like, Kindred is kind of mid.
Yeah, it doesn't have enough. It doesn't have enough views. It's only like 2,000 or 3,000 views, and it's really good. So yeah, Secret Sauce of Storycraft, Octavia Butler. Go watch that one. It's really good.
It truly is like one of my favorite videos that was put out last year. I mean, it's such an incredible resource. Good. And Octavia Butler needs more attention as an author, in my opinion, too. Yeah. I personally love Kindred, though. Kindred's high on my list.
She wasn't saying, like, Whitney in that video wasn't saying Kindred's bad. She was just saying, if you look at all of Octavia Butler's work, there are better things than Kindred.
Oh, no. I totally understand. I mean, I've only read Kindred, to be fair. So she made me want to read Dawn and all the other ones, too.
Fitz is a Maine Coon. A purebred Maine Coon. She is 1.5 years old, so she's still growing quite a lot. Maine Coons get to be huge. Luckily, even though her name is Fitz, she is a she, so she will only get to be 8 kilograms, whereas male Maine Coons can get up to 15 kilograms, which is crazy huge for a house cat. So yeah, Fitz will probably get a fair bit bigger than that, but not like massive. Like 15 kilos for a cat, like you don't want to pick up 15 kilos too often. Like at my age, you might hurt your back. So yeah, Maine Coons are very cool. And I found a breeder who was using Fitz as a breeding mother, and then she had a little, I don't know, cyst or something on some of her breeding plumbing, and something had to be removed, and she couldn't use her as a breeder anymore. So she was not only cheap for a purebred Maine Coon, but she is super sweet.
Talking Story has a pug. I love pugs.
How can your pug throw your back out? They're like tiny dogs.
They're
What kind of spindly back have you got, John?
But Matt, when we get to a certain age, you know how it is. We get to the point where we can sleep wrong. So
yeah,
you never know. Anything
can throw your back out. Yeah,
can throw your back out anyway, right?
So Josh, you're an athlete, right? Like, how much do you run per week?
Not as much as I used to. I even had to change my professional bio to former competitive distance runner
Yeah.
because I used to be someone that ran like 70, 80 miles a week. And now I run about every other day. And last year was kind of tough. There were just some setbacks. So right now I'm kind of just a fitness runner where I run on average maybe every other day, like 5 miles, something like that.
Great.
So
I ran
hopefully
3 miles today.
hey, that's great.
Something.
Hopefully I'll get back. But yeah, it's one of
That's
those.
way more than I ever ran though. I at one point I was running like 35 miles a week, but I've
Yeah.
never done it competitively. Like I've only
Yeah.
competed with myself. So
Yeah, I
that's
got
cool.
pretty competitive for a while. I had a minor local sponsorship and won a few races here and there and it was on a race team from a local running specialty store, and it was great. I mean, it kind of encompassed a lot of my life in my 30s, but I really, really enjoyed it. But you get to a certain age and then, a little injury happens and then another little injury happens. And then you gain 5 pounds here, 5 pounds here. And all of a sudden you're not the world beater I used to be doing that. So
like I said, age appropriate Discord.
agreed.
What are you trying to say about me? Stop.
Well, you're the child here, Joanna.
Yay.
And I don't know how old you are, but I'm guessing you still look 10 years younger than you actually are.
We'll just not say anything about that.
Exactly. I wasn't asking. By no means would I ever ask a lady how old she is, but
yeah.
You would all get along with my husband. He said, I love your husband. It's fun to watch Fantasy Awash and her husband in videos together. He has set a goal of 730 miles or something last year. Wow. And he did in 10 months. That's nice. I did get super fast, I think, for my, I don't know if it was super fast by your terms, Josh, probably not. But for me, I was impressed with myself because at one point I was visiting my parents and I always run on a treadmill. So I never know like how I would do on the road. But one time I just set the timer just out of curiosity. I looked at my phone, I left and I ran around my parents' block, which was 0.8 miles. And so I ran around it 10 times. So that's 8 miles. And when I finished, I was under an hour, just under an hour.
Hey, that's good.
I was blown away because I had no idea I could run that fast.
Yeah.
And I even warmed up. Like I started kind of slow, but I was going really hard at the end. I know that, but I was like, wow, I'm actually kind of fast. So I think I did get pretty fast there for a while, but I've never done a race and I never personally wanted to. But I love running. Running is just, there's nothing like a runner's high. There's nothing else like it.
Yeah. 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 I miss being the fast guy, but maybe it'll come back. We'll see.
Yeah. It doesn't matter though. I mean, even just getting those endorphins going can be wonderfully rewarding. And I do agree that sleep injuries are a thing. I know Jerry was saying that earlier.
But yeah, it's also, for me, running is also my biggest stress relief. So even just doing it for that is worth it.
Yeah. It's a wonderful stress relief thing to do.
Derry. That's good.
I used to run, but it's been quite a while. I used to run like 5 kilometers every couple of days.
Nice.
I mean, that's actually the healthiest approach.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really good. I mean, at the time, I think I've actually I was born with really weird legs. Like when I came out, my feet were like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I wore metal braces on my legs as a kid. So like I have torture trauma memories. And because of that, I've got weird hips, especially now, and knees. And I could not run 5 kilometers anymore, I think, without maybe ending up in the hospital. But it used to be that I ran 5K a day every day or two.
Yeah, that was healthier than when I was running 80 miles a week.
Yeah, no, I was never
the height of
overdoing it.
my-
I was like low key fitness running, not like
yeah.
insane addicted running.
I remember the height of my last marathon training. It was like an 82-mile week. I met a buddy at 3:15 a.m. because we had to run like 18 miles on a Thursday morning. I look back and think, how did I do that?
And why?
Speaking to Jerome's comment there, is anyone else afraid that reading will give them a bent spine later on? So this doesn't exactly answer that question,
I
but
always read like
when
this.
I started reading, when I started reading a lot more a few years ago, when I started making it a daily habit and I started to build from 5 minutes a day to an hour a day, I did start having major back problems. Like I'd wake up and I would put my spine out all the time. It was a mess. I was a mess for like a year and I didn't quite put the two together for a while there. But now what I do is I actually read while I walk on the treadmill. And that's how I get my reading done.
Wow.
So I read for an hour a
Okay.
day in the morning when I'm walking on the treadmill. And I also have a stationary bike and I read on there too. Sometimes I read in bed laying down, but most of the time I have to be moving and reading because otherwise it's just bad for my back to just stay stationary. I feel it. I don't feel comfortable at all. So yeah, I have back problems.
I never even thought about that. I
Yeah.
hope not. I mean, I'm
get-
always sitting.
I get shoulder and
Yeah.
neck sort of. If I read for too long in one go, I will. I'm used to this because I work on a computer in a really intense way all day long, and I made it a habit a long time ago. Like if I've been like staring at a computer monitor for half an hour, I will get up and move around and look in the distance and look at things close up so that my eyes get like focus variations and move around a little bit, go talk to someone, come back, sit down, concentrate again. And I try and do that when I'm reading as well. But this is how I read almost all the time, leaning back with my feet up on my desk in this chair. And that may be better than sitting here hunched over, but I'm not sure. I have no idea.
Yeah. I have like on the other side of the room. I can't even get to it. There's a treadmill and there's
behind the stage, Joanna.
Behind the stage, yeah. I have a treadmill and a stationary bike over here. Yeah, that's how I do it.
Yeah, like I said, the Fireside Retirement Discord.
Hey, and I can tell you, I have a video coming out in March on my birthday. I have it planned in my head. It's going to be. I turned 50 in March, so
what?
Yeah,
No
I'm gonna do a video on my favorite books every year of my life. So
oh wow,
yeah,
okay.
so that's I'm trying to celebrate hitting that milestone.
Yes.
If not, I'd be too depressed. Like I was telling some friends about it, so we're all going to Vegas earlier that month. But even so, I was just like, I don't think I want to celebrate this. And then when they found out it was 50, they said, okay, no, we're going to Vegas or something. So yeah, it's a big one. So
that is a big birthday. That's exciting. Yeah, what
March,
day is your birthday?
March 30th. Yeah, March 30th. So I will be officially a classic that day.
Nice.
Is that
cool.
the cutoff for classics? 50 years?
I don't know. That's what I always said.
Okay.
So
wow, that means
there. I like that idea, John. Yes.
50 is the new 25.
Absolutely.
I thought 50 was the new black.
Talking story, you are so funny. I love that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I started jotting down just some dates, and it's going to be an interesting mixture of a lot of the books I loved, but some of the years just picking one book, and there's like 7 books that came out that year that I think are amazing. It's going to be really tough. So
I can't wait to watch that video. That's so fun.
It's going to be a fun one to put together. Try to celebrate rather than go cry in my pillow or something.
Happy
yeah,
birthday.
it's yeah. Age.
It happens.
Age happens.
It does, certainly.
Unavoidably. Actually, also, I have a video coming out soon recommending 10 and maybe actually 12 books of short stories.
Nice.
A lot of which I haven't read, but I've been collecting them lately because I noticed last year that I was doing things like reading a 1,000-page Malazan novel, and then the next one was a 800-page Realm of the Elderlings novel, and then just like plowing through these really chunky bastards of books. And I thought, okay, I want to get more palate cleansers, things to intersperse between the chunky, more involved, more complex books. And I got a bunch of short stories, and a lot of them have stories, for example, from George R.R. Martin and Stephen Erickson and Robin Hobb, which belong to the worlds that they are known for. So like short stories in the Realm of the Elderlings, or short stories from Malazan, or, that kind of thing. And I'm working my way slowly through those. And I want to do a video about it because I thought a lot of people, like Ken Liu if anyone wants to read short stories, The Paper Menagerie by Ken Liu is a short story and a short story collection. Same
Amazing.
title. And it's so good. It's so good. Yeah.
I talk about it on my video tomorrow.
Okay, cool. I recently got Fragile Things, which is a Neil Gaiman short story collection. I also got The Hidden Girl, which was recommended in the Sunday pub that I do every Sunday, which is more Ken Liu short stories. I'm just looking on the shelf.
I just got The Illustrated Man by Ray Bradbury.
I also just got The Illustrated Man 2 days ago. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Maybe we should buddy read some of those, because I'm the worst when it comes to short stories. I do have the Ken Liu one, the Paper Menagerie.
Yeah.
I just need to get, and I need to get to, I still haven't read Sharp Ends by Abercrombie.
If you want some classic short stories, Raymond Carver's amazing.
Yes.
Flannery O'Connor, a lot of hers are set in the American South.
I really want to read some Flannery O'Connor.
Yeah, pretty remarkable storytellers. And those were authors that pretty much exclusively wrote short stories. So I would definitely recommend them as well.
Yeah. And I do want to read that Beagle one that Jerome was talking about in the chat. Because
Peter S. Beagle. Yeah.
Yeah, because I just finished Last Unicorn on reread. And I mean, in my last video, I talk about it. It was basically a gush. So I really want to read his other, the 2 novellas that's in that short story collection.
And I agree with this. This is actually my long-term planning is I think next year I'm going to start rereading all of Stephen King's short stories. And I can't disagree with this comment that Derry has, that he's consistently good in his short stories.
He's not short stories.
Good. Yeah, his short fiction it's so much more consistent than his novels. His novels, there are some stinkers in there, but his short stories are pretty remarkable.
I read a bunch of his short stories years ago, and like every one is a banger. Everything I've read by him that was a short story was really good.
Yeah, I think he's far underrated in that. I think in general, King, because his horror was his first hit, and he's very good at that, I think it overshadows things he's done better. Like, I think some of his more magical realism novels are better. I think his short stories are better. Not that his horror is bad, but I think he just became the king of horror, and it just kind of cast a shadow on so much else of his that he's quite good at. So yeah, definitely recommend his short fiction. But yeah, I've heard Richard Matheson's stuff is good. I need to read some of that. Yeah, Bradbury short stories. Bridger had a couple that he mentioned on one of his videos that I definitely put down, because Bradbury was another one that was just very good at that. So I definitely want to do that.
Yeah.
It's so weird for me. Like, Ray Bradbury has been on my TBR literally for 30 years, and I never read a single Ray Bradbury book, and always felt kind of ashamed that I'd never read a Ray Bradbury book. And then last year I read Something Wicked This Way Comes, which was amazing.
Yeah.
So good. Such a good story. And just this week I got Fahrenheit 451. I got Dandelion Wine. I got The Illustrated Man. And I think something else I'm forgetting. But yeah, really, really good.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get to The Illustrated Man. I have not read Bradbury either, which I know is kind of embarrassing. I've always meant to get to Fahrenheit 451. For some reason, I've been putting that one off.
Yeah, I didn't read it until maybe 10 years ago, and when I read it, I thought, why is this not more popular than 1984? Because I think it's
Really?
a better book, and I love 1984. I
And I
love
have 1984. I just got that, and I still haven't read that.
it's great. It's great. It's very prophetic.
I have a
Right,
T-shirt.
classic.
I have a T-shirt that says "Make Orwell Fiction Again."
Right?
I know what 1984 is about, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
that
And it's
joke's
still
not
very
lost on
good,
me.
but I thought Fahrenheit 451 was a superior novel, in my opinion.
Wow.
It's really good. Yeah, and it's quick. I mean, it's real thin. book.
Bradbury also, like, if Something Wicked is anything to judge by, like, although he's writing about really amazing ideas, which a lot of people in his time were doing in science fiction, but all they were really writing about was the ideas. Like Isaac Asimov, great ideas, horrible characters. Like, he couldn't write characters to save his life.
Yeah.
But Bradbury's stuff, Something Wicked, was so emotional, so the characters were so engaging, and it transported me back to being like a preteen kid.
Is that
You know?
sci-fi? I didn't realize that Something Wicked
It's
comes to sci-fi.
more like horror-ish.
Yeah,
It's
that's what I thought it was.
It's creepy, but a lot of his stuff is sci-fi, right? So
Yeah.
he was a sci-fi writer who really got writing characters, which a lot of the old school sci-fi guys were not so great at, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Even the ones we love. I mean, I love Foundation, but yeah,
Foundation is purely
idea.
It could be an essay almost.
Some
It's
people
so
say
much
that.
about the
I mean,
ideas.
I don't know if I'm the most character-driven reader, I guess. I don't know. It depends. Like, some
You
people
could
say that
say
about Dune. They say
when
that the characters are flat in Dune, and I still love the characters in Dune. So
I like the characters a lot more in Dune, but I think when I was talking with Jimmy at one point, he described Asimov's prose perfectly. He said it's very journalistic,
yeah.
and that's kind of his writing style.
Yeah.
But that's not Herbert, and maybe that's one reason the characters are, I think, better. But I think also kind of the knock on sometimes with Herbert and writers of that generation is the whole third person omniscient that modern readers don't like anymore.
It makes it harder to relate to the characters.
It really does. But I think if you're patient with it, you can. I think it works really well. I mean,
I think that Herbert was amazing with it, though. Honestly,
agreed.
Yeah,
I have super vivid. I mean, I read Dune, I think the first time when I was like 14 or 15, and since then I have super vivid pictures in my head of Paul and Duncan Idaho and Gurney Halleck, and Jessica. And I remember their names, which is rare for me after I haven't read a book for 20 years. And
that's me after 2 years.
Well, it's also me after 2 years.
I'm horrible with character names. I can remember like everything that a character does, and I'll forget.
I'm rereading this right now, The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. I read it last year, and I am just now reading it again. And like today, I was reading a scene, and I was like, "Was this in the version I read the first time? Really? I don't remember that." So it's almost like reading a new book. It's one of the advantages of having a garbage memory.
Yeah. I would agree with this, Dallas. I think in the robot novels, the robots were more interesting than the humans.
That's interesting.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because a lot of the point of his robot novels was like what happens when artificial intelligence is conscious.
Yeah.
So he was maybe going to a real lengths to try and give them personalities, whereas most of his characters are just like two-dimensional scientists.
Agreed.
His people characters, anyway.
Yeah.
Read the Dune books, or at least the first four.
Yeah.
Dune is kind of like one of those, though, like Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings is one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. At the same time, it seems like, yes, high five. But at the same time, it seems like a lot of young modern readers, people who read modern literature, if they're just getting into it now, a lot of people don't vibe with it the same way. So I'm like, I can kind of understand that.
Actually, just read the first.
I read the first three, and
just read the first one.
The first three completed an arc for me.
Yeah.
I still want to
Agreed.
read the fourth one, but the first three
The,
felt
the fourth
satisfactory
one,
to me.
the fourth one is a bizarre jump from the first three. It's amazing, but it totally changes the tone of the story, and what's going on is almost disconnected from the first three, and it's a real different thing.
That's the only reason I've been a little hesitant about it, because I feel so satisfied with how book 3 kind of completed.
And that's right. It's a 3-book arc, and then there's the fourth one, and then there was going to be another 3-book arc that he didn't finish the last book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I don't think you go past the fourth one. But the fourth one is the most philosophical, and it's the strangest, and it's my second favorite after the first one.
Well, maybe I need to read it, but I like the old campy covers of that book. This is like the best cover of any sci-fi book ever. So it does make me want to read it just based on the cover.
The giant penis with all the little tiny people standing around going, woo!
Well, I was thinking worm, but okay.
It's really phallic, that cover, though. Oh my god. Oh my god. I recently, my 2024 TBR-ish video that I just did, I put in, I'd like to reread Dune. And I put in those 4 old, really cool 70s-ish covers, which are the ones I read when I was a teenager. And it just hit me again. I was like, oh my god, it's just a giant penis with a face on the end. And a whole bunch of miniature people standing around being in awe of it. And I was just like, who designed that?
I love it, though. Oh man, do you have that? Do you have that edition?
No. I don't have any books that I have owned longer than
that's too bad, because I'm
years.
sure that's worth like over $100 now.
Oh yeah.
Joanna, I just saw there's Leonard Slotkin's posting on Facebook old 70s classical music covers, and some of them are like provocative with like half-naked women, and it's bolero and all these things, and it's mind-blowing.
Frank Frazetta was stuff porn.
That was a different era.
It sounds like it.
Frank Frazetta did like every second Sword and Sorcery cover back in the day, and like it wasn't a Frank Frazetta cover unless you had a basically topless woman, clutching some barbarian's leg or something.
It's interesting because I mean, classical music. I mean, Josh can speak to this. Like, you would think it's all for the white-haired crowds at orchestra halls, and but if you actually listen to a lot of it, or even just like, I guess because I'm in more of the opera side of things, like it's pretty risque. Like it goes there sometimes. Like it's not what you think. It's not.
It usually isn't, and maybe that's what they were trying to market it in the 70s.
Maybe.
And now it's so very sanitized. They got the Beethoven bust on the cover or a piece of art on the cover. It's not a
Arselane is saying that the best sci-fi cover is Hyperion, and I beg to differ, my dude. If you're a dude, I don't know you. I assume you mean the one.
It's really good though. The
Shrike standing in the foreground, and in the background is the Sea of Grass and the ship. It is really good. But I'm actually working on a video on Michael Whelan's work, because occasionally I like to do fantasy and sci-fi art videos that no one watches, and Michael Whelan has done
I know who you're talking
almost
about
every cover. Like every 5th cover you've ever seen in sci-fi fantasy was a Michael Whelan cover, and he's done some amazing work. Oh my god!
Oh, I think he's an incredible artist. Didn't he also do? I mean, am I wrong? Is he the one? Is he the same person who did the Stormlight Archive?
Yeah.
Book? Okay.
Yeah.
I like those covers.
The colorful Stormlight Archive ones, not the white ones.
I like those covers. And I saw Jack in the Book Stack was like talking about how ugly they were. I'm like, but I think they're so cool. I agree.
I think they're great.
Yeah.
You can not like Mike Whelan's style, but he's never painted anything that was ugly.
I don't think so either.
Nothing at all ever. Oh my god.
I think he's done
so many.
That would be an interesting top 10 list. Favorite cover art.
Oh yes. Oh my gosh.
I just put that in my to-do list.
I would love that from you specifically, Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Love
have a good
that.
eye for that. I love what did you post recently that had it had amazing art and it had such horrible like
typography.
Yeah.
There are so many like actually the big news for people like me anyway, and Joanna, and maybe not so much Josh, but the Broken Binding is doing special editions of the Malazan Book of the Fallen. And they have commissioned an amazing cover for Gardens of the Moon by Felix Ortiz. They have licensed Mark Simonetti's work, which is the most gorgeous Malazan work anyone's ever painted. But it was for the French covers. And the French covers of the Malazan Book of the Fallen are the best, absolutely terrible example I know of amazing artwork completely ruined by typography. Like literally, like it like hard for me as a designer to even believe that this happened. One of the covers, Dust of Dreams in French, the cover is this giant dragon. Looks like a dragon statue. Read the book if you want to know what it is. And then little tiny people in the foreground. But most of the picture is like this giant mountain-sized dragon. And then they put the typography right over the dragon's head.
And it's even a bad font. And
it's like a really modern looking white font just slapped on there.
Yeah.
It's so bad. It makes me angry. But Mark Simonetti is one of the modern fantasy illustrators who does covers, who is just doing insane work. And Felix Ortiz also, he's one of the newer ones. But yeah.
Hey, Slim asked if any of us have ever read Roadside Picnic, which I'll
just go ahead and say that I did a video not too long ago on 5 sci-fi books I'm very curious about. And while Roadside Picnic was not on that TBR, I did ask for recommendations from the community for short sci-fi. And that one came up over and over again in my comment section. So I'm going to try to prioritize that book this year. That book and John Wyndham's Crystallis, that came up a bit too. But Roadside Picnic, high on my list of books that I want to get to, if possible. And it's not terribly long either. So.
That's the good thing about a lot of sci-fi. It's not these big, chunky, epic fantasy books that we love, but it's refreshing to sometimes pick up a book that's 250 pages and put it down in a couple days rather than some other time. Yeah. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Yeah, we're enjoying the chat. Glad all of you are still hanging out and enjoying the chat too. So,
Derry also says she loves Mark Simonetti, which I cannot blame you. By the way, if you join our Discord, go to the book discussion section and go to the Malazan Book of the Fallen section and click on the link to register interest for the special editions. Even if you're not interested, even if you never planned to buy them, couldn't afford them, whatever, because that will determine how many they print.
Oh, and good to know.
Yeah, they are doing it smart, which like Subterranean Press back in the day, I think never did. They are asking for interest. And all you have to do is put in your name and your email address, and you will get an announcement when it comes out. But they will print based on how much interest there seems to be. And the special editions that came out from the Subterranean Press, they sold out in seconds. And to avoid that happening again, Broken Binding, I think, is a lot better about like realistic run sizes. Yeah. But still, it's good if people register interest. So yeah, check out I just posted yesterday, all of the details we know, like what's going to be going on with those special editions. So for Malazan fans, there's a lot of info there. But even if you're not, click that link and go register. You can put in a name and a fake email address. It doesn't matter. Just that they start getting numbers,
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah.
I would really love those editions, but I just keep imagining they're going to be super expensive. And then
they're going to cost £150 for 3. So 50 each book for a special edition hardback with sprayed edges and naked hardback cover art by Mark Simonetti and a dust jacket by Felix Ortiz, and no doubt really, really good layout interior. And the interior is actually pretty reasonable. Yeah. Yeah.
I just hope. I mean, do you have to have a subscription to Broken Binding to access
The way
we
Broken
get
Binding
access
sales
first. Yeah.
Exactly. Josh and I have subscriptions. There are 2 tiers of subscription. Tier 1 gets access first. There's a contingent that is set aside for tier 1. Then tier 2 gets access. Then public gets access.
Is it too late to do that for Malazan books to do the subscription?
No? Probably, because they have a waiting list, which who knows how long it takes. It took me, I think, 4 or 5 months to get into the subscription.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. And it's they're coming out this summer, but the public, like, again, if they get enough interest, the public contingent, and if you don't wait for days, the public contingent of them should be enough. Also, interestingly, they're doing them as sets, so you cannot buy an individual book.
Okay,
right? You buy the first 3 for £150. That's it. And then they're going to do 3 and 3, and then they're going to do Cripple God by itself.
Yeah. Cool.
Probably over the next 2 years or something. It sounded like the second set of 3 might not come out until next year. So yeah, we'll see. I'm so excited if you can't tell.
I mean, I think I'll get him. I'm continuing, but I think I'll get him at the very minimum of if I do DNF the series again, I don't think reselling them that I'll lose money. So I think
you will
yeah,
almost certainly be able to make a good deal of money if you wait long enough.
Yeah. So
make sure they're sold out, and I'm sure you can get a good deal of money for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But question in the chat, any recommendations for historical fiction apart from Ken Follett? Yeah, I would say some people are bringing up Bernard Cornwell, however you say it. He is amazing. I've enjoyed a lot of his different series. I always like to shout out the Cursed Kings series by Maurice Trouillon, which is 7 books, which I say only read the first 6 though. It's what George R.R. Martin said was the first Game of Thrones, and it's a remarkable series. The first 6 books, anyway. The 7th book was written decades later, and I think, frankly, was a little bit of a cash grab. And the series ends at book 6, but I always shout those ones out as well. I think a lot of times, I don't know if you guys feel the same. I think a lot of times, though, with historical fiction, for me, the most important thing is the era. Like, it has to be an era that I'm interested in. At least for me.
Yeah, it definitely depends on the era. I know that Fantasy Awash is saying Augustus by John Williams, which is definitely up there as one of my favorite historical fiction books of all time. Probably my favorite. I also love Butcher's Crossing by John Williams, which is more of Buffalo country, old Western, takes place in the 1870s, I believe. I think Stoner could even be considered historical fiction if you count early 1900s. But I also love Bernard Cornwell's Warlord Chronicles, one of my favorite series of all time. So definitely would hype that one up. Shogun.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that for sure.
Yeah. Shogun is super popular. Gates of Fire. I didn't love Gates of Fire though, honestly, by Stephen Pressfield, but I did read that one too.
And I would say, just to throw some comics into the ring, or even manga, Lone Wolf and Cub.
Oh, yeah.
It's Edo period Japan. It lacks most of the things that are really annoying, or to me, really annoying about manga, like the crazy over-the-top facial expressions and that kind of stuff. And it's, from what I've heard, I'm not a historical, specifically not an Edo Japan expert, but from what I've heard, it's very accurate historically. Like, it gives you a real feeling for Edo period Japan. It's like, if you liked Shogun, it's kind of the same period, but a bit earlier.
Yeah. Vagabond is a little later than Shogun, like right after that, I think, but that's also apparently very good for historical fiction anime.
Yeah.
Or I mean, manga, sorry. And Vinland Saga is really fun. And I would also, what was I also going to say? Oh yeah. If you like fantasy, then check out Guy Gabriel Kay for historical fantasy.
Absolutely.
His stuff is historical fiction, and he's just copping out by putting an extra moon in the sky. I've heard him talk about it, and like the interviewer was like, "Yeah, but come on, like you write historical fiction, don't you?" And he was
little
dodging
bit
it,
of fantasy.
but
There's a tiny bit.
Little bit of magic.
suggesting that there might kind of be magic somewhere, but basically, yes, it's historical fiction,
and it's remarkable.
Yeah,
yeah. It's on my list. I didn't put it in that TBR-ish video because I could have just gone on for another hour, and that wouldn't have been an interesting video. But yeah, GGK. I've definitely got some GGK catching up to do. I read Tigana a long time ago. I read Fiannavar, the Fiannavar Tapestry before that, and liked both of them, although they're very different. Fiannavar is a lot more YA-ish, and it's portal fantasy, so our world to a real proper fantasy world. But I've got the Sarantine Mosaic books on my list.
That's on my TBR for this year.
I trust Jake. Jake today, where to start with GGK video, and I was like, this dude knows what he's talking about more than anyone I've ever heard as far as GGK goes.
Him and the Library Ladder. We got to shout out.
Those two guys are the prime reasons why I got into GGK for sure.
Yeah, I did find out about the Library Ladder through Jake, to be fair, and I did pick up Lions of Alrasan first because of Jake.
So I discovered. So when my channel was still under 1,000. A channel called The Paper Traveler gave me a shout out on a video, and it was like the first time I was ever tagged in a video, and I was like, what? And the other people she tagged in that video, she called it like booktuber shout outs, and it was channels that she loved that she thought more people should watch, and mine was one. It was interesting, and Words in Time was one. It was when his channel was pretty new, and one of the other ones was Library Ladder, and it was when his channel was really young. So I've been watching him since almost the start. Wow. And it's been really cool because forever when his channel wasn't very big, I would always just say, this is pound for pound the best YouTube channel nobody's watching. But now thankfully people are watching because he has some of the best content out there.
I like him because it's nice that someone on BookTube has a deeper voice than I do.
Yeah, Joanne, I have in my watch later queue your talk with Bridger, and it was like 3 hours or something like that.
Yeah, no pressure. No pressure to watch the whole thing because it's like almost 4 hours long.
I think it'll be one of those where I'll put on an hour here and there, and
We did. It just kind of ended up that way. And the funny thing is that's not even the longest Why Read episode. The longest Why Read episode is still Tori and Alan. But yeah, we had I had a wonderful time talking with Bridger, and honestly, I could have easily talked with him for another 3+ hours easily. Yeah. There were so many other things I could have easily just asked him more about, but he was wonderful.
I was able to catch him live when he was on Jimmy's channel, and I remember that was just a really good chat there. So it's in my queue. So at some point I'll get there.
He can talk. He has a lot to say. That's for sure.
Yeah. But he's so knowledgeable in a lot of areas. So
he's very knowledgeable. Yeah. I love, great appreciation for him.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a good point to wrap things up. I have some video to edit if I want to get out a video tomorrow. So
I can't wait to see your top. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to see if we have the same
kind of top 16. It's my new favorites that I read last year, so that's going to be a lot of fun. But Matt, do you have the Discord thing? Can you do a cut and paste real quick in the link?
Yeah.
As we're wrapping up, once again, if you missed the announcement a little bit ago, the three of us have formed a Discord server where we would just love to talk books with all of you, just like we were chatting today during the live stream. It's called the Fireside Discord, and we'd love to just talk books with all of you. And it's a lot of fun for us to do this. And it was fun to wrap this into my 5K live stream. So this is a nice milestone, and hit the 5K. It's time to do a Discord, and I'm so happy to be able to do this with Matt and Joanna. Matt did put in the comments there the link, so
just take the space
together.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but if you're watching this on the replay, I will link it in the description below, but you'll probably see this in future videos as well. But thank you all for coming and hanging out in the chat. It was great to talk with all of you, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yay, bye.